everyone. Welcome to another episode of CI Diaries. I'm Kristy Placido.
And I'm Carrie Toth. And we are
And
excited to talk to you today about sustained silent reading.
yes, this is a favorite topic of mine. I'm really excited to talk about this. So,
I
Carrie,
am
before
too.
we start, how's school going?
It's going really well. I think that the last 2 years made me really nervous to go back. Last year I thought things would be better and they weren't. And so I feel like this year I was more nervous than I have been in the past to go back. And it's just been such a normal start. I did actually get COVID like 2 weeks in. So I guess
Oh,
it's not a totally normal start, but it,
hopefully you have some
as
immunity
far
for a
as
little while.
relation, I know now we're enjoying our COVIDcation. Now we've been going to restaurants and things that we haven't done in a couple of years, but um, we we're back in school and it's a routine and it's normal with the kids and they are not. Last year I think they were so I don't know, they were just different last year and the kids are normal again this year and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
really enjoying the start of the school year. So
Yay, I'm so
it's
glad to
brought
hear
my
that.
joy back.
Oh, good. That makes me so happy to hear that. Well, I am honestly, I do miss the kids. I have to say, I miss my colleagues and I miss the kids. There's a lot of kind of little hassly things about teaching that I don't really miss, but I'm also doing a lot of work with teachers now, and that's really exciting. So overall,
And you
pretty
got
good
to go
move,
in
I
and
think.
visit school.
I did. Last week I went and had lunch with some of my friends, my lunch bunch. So, and when I walked into the school, a couple of my former students just happened to walk into the library when I walked in, and they ran up to me and gave me hugs, and they were excited to see me, so that felt really good. So I
Yes,
did
for
miss the
sure.
kids at that point. So, before we get started, since we're on the topic of sustained silent reading, and I have been a real bad friend, and I know your birthday was in July. I don't know if you want to tell everyone how old you just turned in July.
I turned 50.
Yay!
50.
So I got you a little something, and I've been neglecting to put it in the mail. And I thought since we're on the topic of sustained silent reading, I thought this might be a good opportunity to let you see your gift, and then I'll give it to you when I see you in person in November. So I got you a
Yeah.
book, and it's cut in the shape of an owl. Isn't that
I
cute?
love it.
And
It is so cute because I have an
it's one of
owl
those,
theme.
I know. And we are podcasting for Wayside Publishing, and their logo's an owl. So I
I
and
love it.
this is I don't know if you remember these.
Look
This
how
is one of
cute.
those Reader's Digest condensed books, and I remember
Yes.
my dad used to subscribe
My
to these, so that
grandma
was
and
kind of yeah.
yeah, very cool.
So I'll bring you your little owl when I see you at Actville
Awesome.
in
I
November, but
love it. It's so cute.
it's been sitting in my office nagging me, reminding me that I have not mailed it to you. So I thought I would just unveil it to you on our podcast. So,
Oh, thank you.
oh, you're welcome. All right, so are we ready to talk about sustained silent reading?
I'm ready. We are off
Okay.
to start with our sustained silent reading at Wildcat Spanish. I actually, this year, I decided to just jump right in. We had been doing card talk in the first week, and our students came back to school on a Tuesday. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to introduce them. I was so excited because my reading lounge had been closed for 2 years and I had it
Yeah.
open again, and I just couldn't wait to take them back there. And so we did card talk on Tuesday and Wednesday, and on Thursday I took them to the reading lounge for the first
So
day, and
Carrie, you have a classroom that's a little different than the average classroom. So tell us a little bit about your setup and tell us what the different zones of your classroom look like.
I actually have kind of a long classroom. My classroom
Hmm.
is directly above the two computer labs. And so,
Hmm.
as long as the computer labs are, that's how long my classroom is. So, I have a
Hmm.
little extra space and I put up a table to kind of be the divider and then my
Hmm.
bookshelves. And so, my reading area is behind that table and I set my bookshelves up on My book racks are on the
Hmm.
table, and then the seating area is behind that. So it sort of separates our reading area out. Now, my colleague has a very small room, and
Hmm.
she has hers set up so that all of the seating is just around the outside wall of her room. So the students still get up and move when it's time for free reading. They're able to get up and move to that comfortable
Hmm.
seating that's around the outside. But she doesn't have that advantage of being up above the computer labs with the extra
Right.
space in her room like I've
Now,
had.
when I was in the classroom, I had a just a normal sized classroom, I guess, for our school, a typical classroom. And I had shelves in the back, on the back wall of my room. I had shelves that were made out of rain gutters. And
That's what
I
my
got,
colleague has as well.
yeah, I don't remember where I got the idea. I want to say I got it from the Read Aloud Handbook by Jim Trelease. Is that maybe
I
where I
think
would have
so.
gotten that idea? So my husband, I got permission first of all before we did this, but my husband and I went to Home Depot. We bought some rain gutters, like the types of gutters that you have on your outside of your house, and we drilled into the concrete, put some really tough anchors into the concrete, and mounted them on the wall. So I had three long rain gutters that went the entire length of the back of my classroom. And then I also had one rain gutter underneath my board in the front of my classroom. And so there were books really nicely on display all around my room. And they really were kind of like decor in my classroom, too. Um, and my students, I had lots of different random pieces of furniture and pillows and things like that all around my room. And some kids would like to sit like underneath a table, some would like to just sit at their
Yep.
desk, some would like to lay on the floor. And my rule was always as long as you're actually looking at your book and you're not being disruptive, you can sit wherever you want and however you want.
Same. Mine,
Hmm.
I do have our reading lounge is kind of compact in my two biggest classes. I have most of my classes are just around the 20, 22
Hmm.
range. And I even have one class that's about 17. But then my Spanish 3 classes are about 30. And
Hmm.
so they fill up the reading lounge. So for those groups where they're so big, if they feel more comfortable sitting around the back side of the
Hmm.
lounge and having a chair back where they're not so crammed in there, that is
Hmm.
totally fine with me. As long as you have your book and you're looking at it,
Hmm.
it's fine with me.
Yeah. And I don't really think that you have to have any particular setup to get started with SSR. I mean, really what you need enough different books so that every kid in any given class can be looking at a book during reading time. And I mean, I was always scrounging furniture and
Yes.
pillows and stuffed animals and things from like wherever. My best find was I got these really comfy, they were chairs that were at one time in a waiting room of a car dealership. So they were like, comfy but really sturdy chairs. And I think I scored 28 or 30 of those chairs. So that became my normal seating in my class, but it was also comfortable seating for SSR. So I didn't really quite need as many other things, but I had had bean bags over the years and things like that too. And they eventually get destroyed and I find something new. So it was kind of an ongoing search.
Search. I have some carpet squares. I went to Dollar Tree and they had these
Hmm.
$1 like carpet squares. I have some of those in there. And
Hmm.
years ago, Spanish Club did a fundraiser and we did a snack shop. I think
Hmm.
after your snack shop, we did a snack shop and raised $1,000. And we bought
Hmm.
3 giant bean bags on
Hmm.
beanbagtown.com. And those bean bags have held up. This is year 10 for the bean bags, and they look just like brand new. I cannot recommend those bean bags on beanbagtown.com enough. They
That
have,
is a
I
great
mean,
testimonial. If
we
they can
use
survive
them
years
so
of high
much.
schoolers, yeah,
Exactly.
that's
Twice a week
amazing.
for 10 minutes a day, 6 hours a day, they have really held up.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the library itself. So we talked a little bit about the types of shelving that we prefer, but what about books? how have you found reading material to put
I
into your library?
I think for Spanish teachers, it's a lot easier than for teachers
Mm-hmm.
of other languages because Scholastic has had their Club Leo, their
Mm-hmm.
kind of Scholastic magazine with little books you can order, like
Mm-hmm.
a book order that
Right.
the grade school kids do. I've ordered a lot of books from Club Leo that
Mm-hmm.
I just personally have bought, or when we've done the Spanish Club Snack Shop, we've bought
Mm-hmm.
books with that. And then I have a ton. Every time a new book comes out, a new reader, I buy a couple of copies of that reader and
Mm-hmm.
put it in my reading library. I read everything that goes in my library myself. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I do during the SSR time, just reading to make sure that it's something that I want in the library going
Mm-hmm.
into my students' hands because we have to be careful, that they're getting the
Yeah.
right messages and the stuff that's in their hands
Yeah.
in the library.
I know
Um,
whenever I travel, I always look for magazines and books and things. And I remember the last time I brought back a big load of books and magazines, my suitcase was actually overweight, and I pulled the teacher card and I told them that I was bringing them back for my students, and they actually didn't charge me. So the
oh,
teacher
that's
card did
great.
work in that instance. But yeah, I my goal for a few years was that I was trying to find something special for each kind of unique preference that a kid might have. So for a
Yes.
while, I was really on the hunt for things like I wanted to find a lot of different types of sports books. Like I had a book about snowboarding and soccer, football, anything you can imagine. I even had a book that was like football, like how to set up football plays. It was kind of like made for like a football coach. I had a few auto repair manuals in my library, like Chilton's manuals, which are probably not the most comprehensible for students, but if you're a kid who enjoys working on cars, honestly, a lot of those, you know, car parts and things like that are cognates, and there are
So it's
enough
something you'd be
diagrams and
interested in.
yeah, there are enough like diagrams and pictures and things that it would get them actually looking. And sometimes you've got kids that are just they're not readers in any language. They're not excited about reading. And so I think especially when you're trying to get them to read in a second language, you have to really be strategic. And I always found too that it was kind of a full-time job just trying to connect individual kids with individual books. Like
Yes.
almost like you're trying to set somebody up to fall in love, like find out what they like, find a book that they're going to like.
That's why I like having read everything that's in the library because you
Mhm.
know your students so well, you know their reading levels. If you know the books that are in your library, it's so much easier. That kind of came from the Book Whisperer. I
Mhm.
don't know if you've read the Book Whisperer,
Yeah.
but that book, uh, who's the authors? It's totally
Donalyn, her
Donalyn
first name's
Miller.
thank
Donalyn
you.
Miller. When you are able to connect them with the book that you think they might like next, and then they're like, "Oh, I really like that book. What do you have for me next?" Or that was right. If
Mhm.
it's at the
Mhm.
right level for them, then it gives them
Mhm.
confidence to pick up another one
Yeah.
the next
Well,
time.
plus I
So,
think it's kind of like a just one more way to connect with a kid. Like when you have a book in mind for them, that tells them that you have been paying attention, that you've cared enough about them to learn something about what they like in life, and you've taken the time to find a book that you think that they might connect with. So even if they don't end up loving the book that you've chosen, you're still sending them the message that you care about them and you care about what they care about and you want to help them make connections. So I think that was really something I really enjoyed was just finding different ways to connect with students.
yes. And I think that having that broad, you can even have like children's books. One of the things my students like to pull off the shelf, I've bought on Amazon, there are a lot of Spanish copies of
Hmm.
children's books that they're familiar with from their own childhood. And so if you can bring those in, mine will pick up The Hungry Caterpillar or
Hmm.
Goodnight Moon, and they will read those just because they're so
Yeah.
excited to see something that, they're
Hmm.
so attached to that story for their own nostalgia reasons,
Yeah.
then, to see it in their new language, that just brings back all these
Yeah.
memories, kind of a heartwarming story to them.
Yes. And another thing, so you've mentioned a couple different resources for getting books. Amazon also, they carry a lot of secondhand books too. So I always found that if you could get a decent enough deal on shipping, it was often like really, really worth your while to look for secondhand books on Amazon. I also have had really good luck with discount bookstores and dollar stores. They will
Yes.
often have just the most random collection of things, but I mean, I remember I found a Juanes biography in a dollar store. I mean, who
And
would have thought?
sometimes
Like, why?
Target will have books in
Yeah.
Spanish, and
Hmm.
our Walmart just had a couple of books in Spanish. And we don't have a lot of
Yeah.
Spanish speaking resources around in our
Yeah.
stores, but our Walmart had a couple of books available in Spanish, and so I got them. So,
Hmm. Another resource that I found is eBay. And I feel like people don't shop on eBay as much as maybe I just don't shop on eBay as much as I used to, but I have found some really good deals on like a lot, like a collection of books, a whole box of books for
yes.
$5 plus shipping or whatever. So, and then I also think you can even do a little bit of bartering with other teachers if you have other teachers that are in your area. Um, I always ended up, when I ordered things from Scholastic, somehow I would always end up with duplicate books. I think I would buy those little collections and then I would end up with
Yes.
multiples. And so if you have another teacher that you could maybe trade around with, you can end up with some different books that way too.
Agreed.
So let's talk a little bit about how we actually get started and how do we manage our students and what's actually going on during that time when students are doing the sustained silent reading and how do we get them prepared for that?
Well, that is the beginning of my class period. I don't know if that's when you fit it into your schedule,
Yep.
but as they come in, I get attendance taken, and then our first transition is that transition into the reading area. So,
Hmm.
my room is set up so that the class, I have like an aisle down the middle of my chairs. So
Hmm.
there's a left and a right side of my room. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we do reading. So on Tuesdays, the right side goes first to the reading
Hmm.
lounge, and on Thursdays, the left side goes first, just to, make sure everybody has their own chance to get the book they want or the seat they want
Hmm.
first. But we transition back. At the beginning of the year, I start them out with just 5 minutes, but then after a couple of weeks, I move it up to 6, and after a couple of weeks, I move it up to 7. And when they've built some stamina, if they seem to be enjoying it, I might
Hmm.
raise it up to 8 or 9 or even
Yeah.
10 minutes by the, end of the quarter or even the end of the
Hmm.
semester. And mine this year they're killing it. So
Hmm.
I'm already up to 7 minutes, and I feel like we're probably ready to move to 8 minutes anytime.
Yeah. Yeah,
How about you?
I did the same. I would start out very minimal, just almost at the beginning, especially with the lower levels, just enough time for them to kind of select a book and start getting interested in it. And I had a large enough library that I would have each class would have a little bin and they would put a sticky note in the book where they left off with
That's
their
fun.
name on it. And then we copy each other all the time, don't we?
Yeah.
So each class had their own bin. So once they got started on a book, they just went directly to the bin, and there wasn't, all the browsing. But as they finish a book, then they would have to go browse in the library. So that cut down really. The whole class was never really all selecting a book at the same time, except for right in the beginning of the school year. So that kind of made it a little bit less chaotic.
That's a really good idea. Mine all put theirs back onto the shelves, so
Hmm.
multiple classes maybe have
Yeah.
multiple post-it notes in the same book, so
Yeah.
that might help
I
a
don't know
lot
if
of
you've ever
traffic back
had
there.
this problem, but I have found that sometimes students will hide a book that's like their favorite book. Like I'll
Yes,
open
because
up
they
a
don't want
cupboard.
somebody else.
Yeah. So I'll open up a cupboard every once in a while and there'll be like a little book stuck in there. Like you guys, you don't need to hoard
Hey,
them. It's kind of cute though that they love
we
their book that much.
it is. They don't want somebody else reading it. After
Right.
mine finish a book, so we actually are in competition. I don't
Hmm.
have any kind of oversight on them.
Mhm.
If they want to stare at a book for 8 minutes, 2 times a week for a whole semester, and just stare at the book, that's their prerogative. I
Yep.
can't stop them from doing that. Their English teachers have been trying to stop them from doing that for the last 11 years. I'm not going to be
Right.
able to stop them from doing it
Mhm.
in my class. But most of the kids really are reading. And
Mhm.
so the ones that do and finish books, I have them fill out a little post-it note and they put
Mhm.
the author's name, the name of the book, a number of stars that they're giving it, whether
Mhm.
they thought it was easy, medium, difficult to read it. And then their favorite part, my favorite part was when
Mhm.
in Spanish they write it down.
Yeah.
And they stick the post-it note up on the board under their class period. And then at the end
Mhm.
of the semester, I add up the number of post-it notes in each class and divide by how many kids are in that class. And the group with the
Mhm.
highest ratio of books read gets a prize. And so
Okay.
they know this. And so now they're in fierce competition to be, really reading
Right.
and reading and getting through books. And so at first it took them a little time to settle in, but once the first post-it notes started going up, then the books started really getting serious. Like now
Yeah.
we're really,
I really feel like I have the same philosophy as you. I realize there are some kids that are going to stare at a book. I mean, my rule is you have to be looking at a book and you may not be talking. So, I mean,
right.
yeah, if they want to just open up the book and stare at it and be quiet, I mean, that is their prerogative to do. Um, I do occasionally have them do a little activity after we do our reading time. Like I might just have them pair up and just share one thing that happened in their book with their
Yeah.
partner, or I might ask, did anybody learn a new word in their book today? And just it's just free to share, it's not anything on the spot. um, and I occasionally would do a little book talk myself, and like you, I read while the
Yeah.
students are reading. And if I have any new books I'm adding into my library, I do the same as you. I always read those first, and then I will very often just have my own novel, that's at my level that I'm reading in Spanish as well. And I feel like that kind of sets an example for them that just because
Yes.
I'm the teacher doesn't mean that I don't use the language in my everyday life. I mean, it's a part of my everyday life. But I really like to, when I get a new book and I've just finished reading it, I'll just go up in front of the class and just kind of tell them a little bit. And I'll talk in really, simple, comprehensible language. And I'll just tell them a little bit about the book, not give away any spoilers. But I've always found that when I do a book talk, that book will go off the shelf really quickly. There's always some kid that wants to grab the book that I
Oh
just talked
yeah.
about. So, and I mean, I
I
I
agree.
also feel like if there are kids that are not into the reading, I always kind of tell myself that eventually they're going to get bored with that. And I mean, the human mind is just naturally curious, no matter how rebellious you want to be. I feel like if there is a book open in front of you, your mind is going to want to decipher at some point what's on that page. And I also
Exactly.
do, and I'm working so hard to connect every kid with a book that they're going to like. And if I see that I've got a kid that is picking up Goodnight Moon every single Tuesday and Thursday for an entire quarter, I mean, I'm going to be working with that kid trying to win them over. And I let them know. I'm like, my project is to find a book that you're going to like before the end of the semester. And we laugh about it. That I'm investing in you. I want you to love reading. But then there are always those kids too who love it so much and they get so into their books that they're reading that I feel like it's worth the time. Even if I've got a handful of kids that are totally wasting the time, there are enough kids that are really investing in it that I feel like it is never wasted time. I'm always happy to spend time
No.
doing
Yeah.
that.
And the vocabulary growth in some of the kids that
Mhm.
are really, looking upwards in their
Yep.
glossaries.
Mhm.
And some of those page flippers will pick up magazines and flip
Yeah.
magazine pages and look at, and there's so many cognates and titles
Mhm.
of articles and things in magazines that they're still getting input, whether they mean to or
Yeah.
not, like
Exactly.
accidental input.
I just feel like if you lead the horse to water, eventually it's going to get thirsty and want to have a drink. So,
That's right. How did you
So,
transition back out after you've done your reading time? How did you transition back out to class time then when your minutes
so
were up?
I would usually I would set a timer and I would have it just on a screen. They could all see the timer, and some kids do get a little distracted just staring at the timer, but to me it was helpful for I felt it was helpful for the kids who were the most reluctant to know that it was a finite amount of time. And, so that if they really were hesitant about it, at least they knew it was only going to be 5 minutes or whatever. And then usually when the timer was up, the kids would just naturally get up and put their books. I guess I taught them the routine. I mean, I don't know. It's not something I spent a lot of time thinking about, but yeah, I taught them the routine that needed to happen. We quietly put our books back into the bin and go back to our seat. Or if you're done with your book, you put it back on the shelf. If your book, I even had a little book hospital, so if your book is damaged, bring it up to me and I'll repair it. So, yeah, so I had a routine.
That's
It was
we
such a
also
routine, I
have
forgot I
that.
had it.
We also have a routine. They put their books back, or they can make out their post-it note if they've
Hmm.
finished their book, and then we come back into the class. I
Yeah.
just set my timer on my phone, and then when the timer goes off, they
Hmm.
know that their reading time is done, and we
Yep.
move back to the class, and they take their seats, and then we just start our normal class times. So
Yeah. Well, I think that's about all the time. Speaking of timers, our timer's going off. I think that's about all the time we have for today's podcast. But we're really excited because we've been getting more questions from our listeners and
yes.
viewers. So if you have any questions about implementing sustained silent reading in your classroom or any little tips that you would like to share with our listeners, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to get in touch with us either by email or social media or leave a comment if you're viewing on YouTube or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We would love to hear from you. It makes our day when we get a message from a listener. So
It
please get
does.
in touch. And we will talk to you next time. It's great to see everybody and have a great day.